Thank you so much, Carrie. I'm super excited to be here. I don't know if many of you have been on the webinar all day or you're just joining now for GPS for scaling your business. Either way, I hope you're getting a ton of good things out of it. I was just listening to the last part of Bob's presentation. I was taking notes for myself, so thanks for that, Bob. So we're here today to talk about the GPS for scaling your business. And before we dive in, I want to kind of start with a story. My guess is that you all either stayed or you logged on today because you're in the process of scaling your business. Aren't we always in the process of scaling our business? I think so, right? But you may be bumping into some challenges that you need a little help with. So my goal for today is maybe to touch on some things that may resonate with you and give you some ideas about how you can solve for those challenges. Before we do that, though, I'll start with this. So as I was thinking about and preparing for this talk today, I was thinking about the navigation system, the built-in system in my new car. So 3 years ago, I leased the same car, right? And it had this beautiful built-in navigation system. It features this car, a 14-inch screen. A large part of the user manual, okay, is about how to use the navigation system. It's quite beautiful. I think it would be very easy for me to use this navigation system, not have to look down at my phone. That sort of makes sense to me, right? So if I told you how many times I actually used this system in 3 years of owning this car, you might or might not be surprised. I used it less than 10 times in 3 years. Crazy. The question is, why would I do that? Why would I have this technology in my car that I just absolutely don't take advantage of? And then I started thinking, wait a minute, is this a Suzette problem? So, as I do quite often now, I asked ChatGPT to tell me how many car owners with built-in navigation systems still use smartphone apps. 40 to 60%. That was kind of surprising to me. The reason? Well, there's a few reasons, right? Real-time updates, better user interfaces, ease of use, familiarity. Okay? The last two things that I just said were the reasons that I did not adopt this new technology in my beautiful new car. It was easier to keep using Google Maps on my iPhone. It was more familiar to me. So I simply just didn't put in the effort to learn the navigation system. Now, a few weeks ago, I did this presentation in a room full of people, and I had a couple of 30-somethings come up to me after I did the talk, and they said, Suzette, do you know what Google Play is? And I said, I'm embarrassed to say, I don't know what Google Play is. They said, well, that's kind of crazy because you could use that for your maps and your car. Well, one of the reasons I didn't even think about it is I had an older iPhone, an iPhone 12. Why have I not upgraded to a newer phone? Because in my mind, it's easier to just keep using the phone I'm using. It's familiar to me, okay? So there's lots of applications to this. As we think about the GPS for scaling our business, is it possible that we're guilty of doing the same thing in our business? I encourage you to think about things that you may be doing that are not as effective or efficient as you want them to be because you're sticking with the thing that's easier or more familiar. Okay? So leaders who achieve remarkable results strike a balance between the strategic big picture thinking and focused attention to the small actions that make the big difference for your customers and your business. So here's my first question for you, my friends. What are your biggest challenges with scaling your business? What are your biggest challenges with scaling your business? And I understand we have a very big group here today. So we're going to have business owners, solopreneurs, sales leaders, individual contributors. I'm sure we have a lot of folks that are sitting in the C-suite today in their organizations. Whatever it means to you in your role, what are the biggest challenges? I want you to put it in the chat you have with scaling your business. And what I'm going to see, I feel confident, okay? What I'm going to see is, and here's what I hear many times from my own clients, hiring and retaining qualified talent. Maybe for you, it's adapting technology to meet your growth needs. Sometimes I hear, we're just trying to keep up with increasing customer expectations. Other people tell me that they're dealing with the operational complexities as their business grows in size. I am a sales trainer, a Sandler sales trainer. So quite often people share with me their challenges around training or being really effective with coaching. For some of you, it may be predicting future growth. And as we go through the rest of the presentation today, I want you to be thinking about these challenges and what are some things that you might learn today that you could put into action immediately to get a different result. Okay? So I'm going to introduce a triangle to you that you may have never seen. And before we talk about the scalability triangle, I want to take you back to a triangle that for my friends on the call, and I have clients in this webinar, I have former clients in this webinar, I have some friends and colleagues in this webinar. If you've had any exposure to Sandler, you know what the success triangle is. Okay, the success triangle has 3 points. It starts with our behaviors, the things that we do consistently day in and day out to get us to our goals. Then we talk about attitude in the success triangle. What belief system, what mindset, what attitude are you bringing into your business every single day? And then what are the techniques that you've learned and that you're putting in, you're implementing to make you really good at what you do? So behaviors, attitudes, and techniques. And we believe in Sandler, it takes all 3 for one to be successful. So as I started to think about the GPS for scaling your business, I thought we should have a triangle for that. And in the points of this triangle are 3 things. So there's accountability, predictability, and strategy. So as we're looking at the challenges and you're thinking about the challenges, and I'm seeing those in the chat, I want you to then think a little bit deeper. If you had to put one of those challenges in scaling your business into one of these 3 areas, which one would it be? And I'm going to help you unpack all 3 of these components of the scalability triangle. So if we talk about accountability, and that's the first point in the scalability Sandler triangle, what does accountability mean? And you see a few things here on the slide. I think one of the most important things we can talk about when it comes to accountability is, are you setting clear expectations with your teams, or frankly for yourself, if that's the case? I'm going to tell you a little story about an individual sales contributor. And for the sake of the story, I just made up a name. So for all my Caitlin's on the webinar, this is not about you. In my story, this individual contributor is Caitlin. Caitlin was hired by her company and was told she needed to go sell net new logos for her company. That's it. Just go sell net new logos for our company. Sounds pretty simple, right? But is that the right way to do it? What she didn't have was a roadmap. She didn't have a plan to set her up for success. She had no direction. Just go sell net new logos. No clear expectations. So the question is here, if Caitlin doesn't close any net new logos in her first year, did she fail? When we talk about accountability, it begs the question, what are we exactly holding Caitlin accountable to? With no behaviors, no roadmap, no plan, The only thing we can measure is the result. And if all we're measuring is the result, how can we possibly hope to make any adjustments if we need to? A culture of accountability fosters both personal growth and organizational success. Are you creating in your business as you're scaling a culture of accountability? And are you holding everyone accountable in the same way? And you can put yes or no in the chat to this question. Regardless of your role, have you thought about viewing failures as an opportunity for growth? And for some of you, the answer may be yes, I absolutely have thought about it. That is my mindset as I'm scaling my business. And you might have a really good way of doing that. But if you're in the other camp and you don't view failures as opportunities for growth, maybe that's one thing that you take out of today that you would change. Okay. So I'm going to introduce a few Sandler rules for you here throughout the rest of our time together. The first one is manage the behaviors, not the results. Now, I've already touched on this with Caitlin. So if Caitlin, hypothetically, had been given a cookbook, a recipe for success, how would that have changed things for her and for her organization? Probably both. I would encourage those of you on the call who are sales leaders today to take your individual contributors' quotas and convert those into a behavioral plan. Many times they don't know what to do to have success in hitting their number. They just don't know. And quite often I see leaders managing the numbers, not the behaviors. You may or may not have heard of something called leading and lagging, leading indicators, lagging indicators. The lagging indicators are the result of whatever's happened. You cannot go back and change that. The leading indicators, those behaviors, those are things we can manage and control. So if we dig into strategy, so we've talked about accountability. What does accountability look like in your world, in your business? And that might be the area you tell me at the end that you want to focus on. Or it could be strategy. So when you talk about what is your strategy for scaling your business, what I hear most often is business owners, people responsible for scaling businesses, are really good at short-term goals. Some are super good at long-term goals, but we all know it's important to have both. And I think when you think about the strategy around scaling your business, are you measuring and monitoring progress? A suggestion that I quite often make to my clients is don't wait until the end of the year to debrief and figure out the things that aren't working and the things that are working, because you can't change. You're already at the end of the year. So if you're in scale mode, I would suggest that every 90 days, you sit down with your teams and you take a hard look at, over the past 90 days, what's worked, what hasn't. And what that does for you is it gives you the ability to identify what's working and what's not, and then pivot. Wouldn't we love to have the opportunity to do that early on in the year rather than at the end when we can't go back and change anything? So every 90 days, best practice, sit down and look at all of your processes and figure out what's working really well that we need to do more of, and what's not working at all for us, and how do we need to change that? How can we change our strategy? So we talk about using a common process. Why is a common language or a common process important? Well, I think it brings clarity to every conversation, every single conversation. Here's a simple example. Sales leader says to sales executive, they get off of a call, they walk into their office, they hop on a Zoom, a Teams, and sales leader said, hey, how'd the call go? And the salesperson says, it went well. curious, what does went well mean? As leaders, quite often we insert our own version of what went well means. So my question for you today in the area of strategy, are all of your salespeople, we'll just take salespeople for the purpose of the conversation today, are they all using a common language? Or are they all doing something a little bit different? So if you sat them all down in a room and you asked them to write down the process, hey team, what process do we follow start to finish from the time we're prospecting to closing to selling additional products and services? If you've never done this exercise, I encourage you to do it. As a sales leader, compare what you see, what they're telling you. And if it's consistent across the board, congratulations, my friends, that's amazing. But if you're like 90% of other sales leaders, everyone in the room will have a slightly different approach. That is your first sign that you do not have a common process. When we say we don't have enough time, I would suggest that that's a symptom. The real problem is that we're spending a lot of time training and coaching to different languages. Think about this. When you have a common process, a common language, you create efficiencies all the way around. From the time you onboard a new employee into training and then further deeper into coaching. But you've got to have a common process, a common language. Okay? Now, second thing I'm going to share with you here under the umbrella of strategies you're scaling your business is train your team. Trainers, leaders, training is one of the 4 hats of leadership. I'll say that again to my leaders on this call. Training is one of the 4 hats of leadership. Does that mean that you yourself have to do the training? Not necessarily. If you're not qualified to do all the training that your team needs, find someone who is. But what's your job in that? Your job is to figure out individual needs of your teams. Where are their skill gaps? What kinds of training do they need? Because it will be quite different for each individual, potentially. It's no different. I think about, Bob said earlier, how many of you have kids? How many of you have been a kid? Well, let's go with how many of you have kids. I have 6 children, blended family. These children were raised very similarly, yet they're all vastly different. I think of sales teams or just teams in general, client success teams. Plug in any team you'd like. They're all different. They all need different things. Yet sometimes I think we're guilty of treating them all the same, training them all the same. So when you're thinking about what kind of training do I think these people need, is it online training? Is it face-to-face training? Is it training that you'll be doing internally? Are you going to bring somebody from the outside, right? External training. And here's a little tip for success here. If you hope to make training successful, which will lend itself to better scalability of your business, right? If you can hire the right people, qualified people, you train them well. And I'll tell you how one way to go about doing that. That will go a long way in terms of you scaling your business more quickly, if in fact that's a goal for you. So when you think about training, once you've set up the training, then have a meeting with these folks prior to the training and ask them what their goals are. Really seek to understand what they're hoping to get out of the training. During the training, please text them, email them, call them and ask them how it's going. And further than that, what are they going to put into practice, something they've learned in this training immediately? And how would that change how quickly they get to their goals, how quickly you as a business owner, a leader, get to your goals? We teach something in Sandler called the upfront contract. And this is simply put a way to set expectations for any call, any meeting, frankly, any conversation. If they've learned the upfront contract and you're staying in touch with what's going on in the training and you say, what is your plan for using the upfront contract? And they'll tell you. And then if you could take it a bit further, Bob was talking about debrief and debrief success, I think. If you use that upfront contract to help them or to support them in pre-call planning, if the two of you use the upfront contract when you're debriefing calls, wow. And when the training is over, go on the backside, post-training, and understand from them what was really important to them and what they plan to implement. Now, the upfront contract is a tiny example of how we could do that. There are lots of examples of things that they're learning that is our responsibility as leaders to reinforce. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is living the process. So if in fact you have a process, but you're not reinforcing it until it's second nature for everyone, you may be missing out on some great opportunities. Make sure that your process is a part of your leader's daily routine. From day one, when you hire someone and you onboard them, teach them the process. Coach to the process. I would encourage you to identify the top 10 coaching scenarios in your world. Embed the process in your CRM. Make your debrief process match the steps in your sales process. And as a leader, you must model the behavior and use the process. It's just like with our kids. For all of my friends who are parents like me, they always watch what we do. They don't always listen to what we say. So if you are modeling the behavior, you are living the process, it is second nature for you. It will be that for them. And as we switch gears here into the third part of the scalability triangle, I want you to put in the chat, what are the key reasons that prediction is crucial for scaling your business? Let me know what your thoughts are. What are the key reasons? I'm expecting to see financial forecasting, predicting future revenue and expenses so you can create realistic budgets, allocate funds effectively, and prepare for potential challenges. Resource planning is one I hear quite a lot. Yep, I see planning there in the chat. Identifying potential obstacles in advance through prediction enables you to develop contingency plans and mitigate risks associated with scaling your business. Good. Plan appropriately for delivery. Yes. Scheduling. I love it. Keep those coming in the chat. And while you're continuing to put your answers in the chat, and the question was, why is prediction so crucial for scaling your business? I want you to think about how confident, if you are in fact a leader, a sales leader in particular, how confident are you when it comes to accurate sales forecasting? How confident are you? Are you doing what I did with the navigation system in my beautiful car? And you're saying that's nice and that would probably make it easier for me, but it's hard because then I'm going to have to learn something new and I don't want to stop and take the time to learn it. Are you doing that when you're sales forecasting? Are you doing what's easy and familiar, but is that really getting the results that you want? Are you making sales strategy adjustments? So as we talk about, I'm trying to advance my slides. There we go. So tracking the leading indicators. If you want to forecast effectively, here's some quick tips. I already said it once, but we like reinforcement, right? Have a sales process. If your sales team is forecasting something to close, but you know it is way too early in the process, there is no way they're going to close that, call it out. I suggest that you have subsets, right? If you have a 7-step sales process, know what needs to happen to progress a deal at every stage. Stop tracking lagging indicators, track leading indicators, behaviors, manage their cookbook. If you know what behaviors it takes to hit their goals and they're not doing it, they will not hit their numbers. And as we talk about accurate sales forecasting, this is something I see all the time. Salespeople don't get complimented when they disqualify an opportunity. They don't. In fact, sometimes we beat them up for taking opportunities out of the funnel. If we do that, we will encourage bad behavior. They'll continue to put opportunities in the pipeline that are not qualified, which will affect your ability to accurately forecast. So compliment people when they disqualify opportunities. We love this in Sandler. It will save you time, energy, and resources. So track the leading indicators. As we talk about the scalability triangle, and you remember the 3 points of the scalability triangle: accountability, strategy, predictability. If you had to put back to the very beginning, and I saw the challenges, right, that you were putting into the chat. I see here, Manny, getting alignment of multi-generational teams to achieve high sales numbers. Yeah. So Manny, if you had to put that in a category, where would you put it? I think that falls under accountability. And then what are some things you can do to change that? Maybe what some of the things you put in the chat would fall under predictability. I know I'm not very good at predicting the future. And if I don't get better at that, I probably won't be able to scale my business the way I want to. So I want you to start putting in the chat in one of these 3 areas, okay? Accountability, strategy, predictability. And remember, you might say in accountability, I'm not setting clear expectations with my teams. I think I could do a better job of creating a culture of trust and transparency, a culture of accountability. Maybe you're not doing a great job of fostering personal growth. You're hyper-focused on organizational growth. They're both important. You might put in the chat, you want to work on strategy. I know we need a common language, a common process. I understand the importance of training our team, but we haven't put an emphasis on that. And as a leader, if I do a gut check, am I living the process? Am I modeling the behavior? Is the process and the common language second nature for everybody on my team? Or you might tell me it's predictability. I can't predict accurately, right? I'm tracking the lagging indicators. I'm tracking the result. Remember, you can't change that. And that won't help you get better in terms of predicting what's going to happen in your business. Okay? Track the leading indicators. You can control those. Those are the things that you do. Those are the things that they do to get you where you're going in terms of scaling your business. So as we wrap up, the question is, are you doing things in your business like I did with my NAV that are probably easier and more familiar, but maybe not as efficient or effective? And if I did something that was different, what would that change in my business? If we created a culture of responsibility and accountability and had a strategy, would that lead to our ability to more accurately predict what will happen in our businesses? My friends, it was great to be with you today. I wish you all the best as you continue to scale, grow, and scale your business. And usually when I end a talk, I say good selling. I decided today I'm going to leave you with good scaling.